Welcome back to the channel. In a previous video we took a listen to all the different types and styles of EQ or equalization available, and in this video we're going to do the same thing for compressors. We're going to take a listen to all the main styles and also which ones might be best suited to a particular task. So let's waste no time and just get right into it. There's 4 types of compressors we're going to look at today: FET, VCA, tube, and optical, and while they all aim to control or modify the dynamics of a signal, they all do this in vastly different ways, whether this is using tubes or transistors or lights and photodiodes. They're all listening to, interpreting, and applying gain reduction in different ways, and this results in a different sound. We'll start by taking a listen to a FET compressor, in particular the 1176 limiting amplifier, because it's by far the most popular FET compressor ever produced. These typically are known for having a punchy and bold sound, but there are a few pitfalls that you have to be aware of when using them so that you get the sound you're looking for. So let's start by taking a listen to a drum kit processed through this, and you'll hear the very distinctive sound of this compressor. FET compressors are full of tone and character. You can hear they're not subtle in any way. They're known for their very fast attack times, in this case 20 microseconds. So it's usually a good idea to slow down the attack time, let some of the transient through, and you'll end up with a much more punchy and snappy sound, like this. It's so easy to overdo this style of compression because it's really fun, so many engineers often use this in parallel or use a mix control like this to just blend in an amount of that overcompressed signal, and it often adds a lot of energy and style to your recording. One of the best times to use these compressors is while recording vocals or instruments. I find that it gives an artist an awful lot of confidence to just be controlling those dynamics a little bit. I find that you can get really confident and controlled performances out of them, and it makes them feel a lot better about themselves too. Take a listen to how this just controls the guitar, prevents it becoming overly dynamic when we don't need it to be. You'll notice that I have a slow attack and a fast release, and an issue I find is that often people set these too fast on the attack and too slow on the release, and then you can turn a recording into mush really quickly, and it's difficult to recover it when it sounds like this. So a quick summary of FET compression. These are excellent when you're looking to add color, tone, and texture to a sound. They offer incredibly fast attack and release times, so they're going to clamp down on transients really well, especially when recording. And a good place to start, if you're new, is to set the attack time very slow, set the release time fast, and then dial it in until you can hear compression. Don't always trust what the VU meter says. Definitely use your ear and decide when you've dialed in enough compression. Now we're going to take a look at tube compression, often called Vari-Mu or delta-mu compression. Now, many different compressors use tubes in their circuitry, but when I talk about a tube compressor, I mean a compressor where the gain reduction, so how much gain and how to reduce that gain, is handled by the tubes in the circuit. The tubes are much slower to respond to the incoming audio than, say, a FET compressor, and this means they preserve the transients very well. They're great to use on mixes and subgroups, and they provide what many engineers and producers call glue or warmth to the signal. Just due to the circuit topology, they tend to sound really good. So let's take a listen. Remember, there's no EQ here, just compression. while the compression itself was quite transparent, the circuitry has imparted a lovely tone on the recording. The tonal balance has shifted, it almost sounds like we've applied an EQ and warmed up the audio a little bit. And although these excel on entire mixes, you can use them on individual tracks such as vocals. After a faster compressor or limiter, you could use this to smooth out the average of the signal and just make everything sound a little bit warmer and a little bit smoother. Possibly one of the most iconic or famous Vari-Mu or Delta-Mu compressors is the Fairchild 670 or 670. And I've got to admit, there's nothing that sounds like the hardware. None of the recreations or plugins are quite there yet. But hopefully this demonstration can again show you the difference in tone that can be achieved, even at just very small levels of compression. To summarize tube compression, it often has a much slower attack and release time, which means that it allows transients to get through and it can be great for gluing a whole mix together. And while the compression itself can sound fairly subtle or transparent, the effects of the processing and circuitry is anything but transparent, and you can expect quite a change in the tonal balance, potentially becoming warmer or even brighter. And this might be ideal for a certain application, but it will leave other engineers choosing a slightly more subtle or transparent tool. The next one we're going to look at is the optical or opto compressor, and in particular the LA2A, because it's probably the most famous optical compressor ever made. In this design, the audio feeds a lighting element like an LED, and this shines brighter or dimmer depending on the intensity of the audio. And a photocell picks up the light being emitted by this element. And while the speed of light is incredibly fast, the reaction between the audio lighting the LED and the photocell picking up that light actually does create quite a bit of a delay on both the attack and release. So they tend to be a great choice when you want to compress based on the average of a signal and not necessarily based on what those transients are doing. In this next vocal example, you'll hear that with the optical compression, all the transients still get through and every word can be heard right on top of the mix, whereas without the optical compression, some of the words and phrases just start to drift down and become a little bit too quiet. So let's take a listen.
Dove deep until I knew no longer up from down. It feels like sanity until my lungs remind me. Dove deep until I knew no longer up from down. It feels like sanity until my lungs remind me. Dove deep until I knew no longer up from down. Dove deep until I knew no longer up from down.
Now let's finish off with my favorite type of compressor, the VCA or voltage controlled amplifier compressor. The reason this is my favorite is that it offers you the most control and flexibility. They can sound really sort of colorful and rich in tone, or they can be incredibly transparent. SSL, API, and Neve all make world-famous VCA compressors, and one of my favorites is the Distressor by Empirical Labs, simply because it is so flexible. This design is also used in some of the best mastering compressors because it simply allows so much control, flexibility, and low distortion. So let's take a listen to a few audio examples. So hopefully you could hear how that improved the sonic character of the mix, really brought in some more dimension and detail there as well. However, VCAs really do excel on individual channels. Whenever you want compression that can sound a little bit more transparent, really control the dynamics without imparting too much tone, these can often be your best friend. You can hear this long attack time is really letting all those transients through while just generally controlling the level. But if I reduce the attack time, you can hear it squashes the whole signal out. And while this is clearly overcompressed, we're not hearing any issues with distortion or the compressor pumping up and down, struggling with it. It's just doing what it's told, and it's not really making a fuss about it. So to summarize VCA compression, it usually offers the most control and flexibility over your attack, release, threshold, and gain reduction. It can often sound the most transparent, and because of this, it's great for individual tracks, but also entire mix or master processing. However, it's not always transparent, because depending on the design of the compressor, there may be other components in there which help to add a lot more character, warmth, brightness, and saturation. And finally, many VCA compressors also try to model the attack and release behavior of tube, FET, and optical compressors, because it's often a very cost-effective way to do so. So just bear that in mind. Your VCA compressor could really be a great all-around processor. So that's it for today, but if you want to know more, please do watch my How to Hear Compression video or Understanding Compression videos, which will help you dial in the different controls on these compressors to really get the results you're looking for. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.